This is Seymour Rocks reporting from down under again with Pam Crisp. And it's a beautiful, pretty hot day here in Lower Hutt in New Zealand. Uh, just before I was looking at a video on the situation in Cape Town, and I was just reflecting on just how quickly, there's no problem, and then suddenly there's a problem, and there's a full-blown crisis. And I was just reflecting on our own water, as I do very often. I've tried to chronicle our situation. Um, and yeah, we were both reflecting, weren't we, that it could easily turn quite quickly. This is a river that the whole of the Wellington area, the capital of New Zealand, 350,000 people, I think, is completely dependent, as far as I know, or largely dependent on this river for its water, and we're in the middle of a drought. So we went on a bit of a little expedition with my iPad camera to record it, and I'm just wondering kind of what you saw. I mean, you had some good reflections when we came back.
It's amazing how quickly the river changes. After a few days of very heavy rain, it could be in flood, with the water right up to the banks and over. 3 or 4 days it would be well and truly over the banks, and now, with quite a long period of time with very intermittent rain, but not very much at all, it's pretty low. And what I saw for the first time was the toxic algae that's so deadly poisonous for animals. And of course our dog wanted to go in there and drink it, and I felt very mean because I couldn't let her go in at that particular point. But I haven't actually seen that stuff up close before, and I'm glad I have.
And then you had some observations about some of the vegetation too.
Well, yeah, I mean, knowing what I did many, many years ago, studying and teaching geography briefly in secondary school, and I was always fascinated by geomorphology and the behaviour of rivers and how they naturally move across a floodplain and meander and so on. What really struck me today was the amount of hardened surface or artificial surface. So down by the water's edge, in that part of the river, there's very little native vegetation. You've got willows and some other deciduous trees along there, and roads on either side, so hardened surface. So no water that falls on that hardened surface is going to go into the aquifer. It's going to run off somewhere. And then when I got a close-up look on the bank opposite where we were sitting, I could see the remnants of what would once have been the natural ecosystem. Lots of, really healthy flaxes and coming up through all the blackberry, and then a road between the river and that vegetation and the forested hillsides. Now, I think we're extremely fortunate, and I think this is becoming very rare anywhere really, in that we still have forested catchments, and if we went right up to the top of the Hutt River, it really is forested. And so although we're seeing the inevitable, motorway and rail development and golf courses and so on, it's not too bad. But I think the river is very low. When I was standing on the bridge looking south, I saw one guy wading across the river, and at no point was it any higher than his knee. He could have easily crossed the whole thing. And there were no people in there swimming, which was sort of odd.
Well, there's toxic algae.
Yeah.
But what occurs to me is that very, very few people have any historical memory of what it was like before, unless we've got someone who we know who's a canoeist, and he used to canoe the whole length of the Hutt River he said he can't do that anymore. He's got to kind of pick up his canoe and then sort of carry it along, and then he can find another bit where he can canoe. So, it's those long-term changes, we don't really see them. So that's why I've been kind of photographing it sort of over the last, I don't know, 3 years or something. And my sort of feeling is that there's obviously we're in a drought. I mean, but I think there's a long-term drought, and it's just intuitive. I've got nothing to back it up really, but the water table is thick. We're just drying out, even though the vegetation comes back and the grass is green again. Just a feeling of it not being very healthy, and that we could quite easily, with the way in which they're taking water off the river and what's happened to the aquifer, we could just be into a Cape Town type crisis very, very quickly. And given, because we're in the midst of abrupt climate change, and this is the very, very beginning of it. So I'm trying to sort of chronicle, those early stages. So I think that was basically what we observed, wasn't it? There wasn't really anything.
But in
much
terms
else to
of how
report.
far upstream we were from the river mouth, would you say we would have been 20 kilometres upstream?
Oh yes, 20 kilometres.
Because I'm a South Islander,
South.
from the west coast of the South Island. Now, if I go 20 kilometres upstream from the mouth of the Hutt River, which is a massive, massive catchment, I'm really in quite, densely bushed country, bits and pieces of farming. But the river is so much more intact, and what struck me today is how constrained the floodplain of this river now is. Because when I think of the Hutt River, there's been alteration, but it still covers a very wide floodplain, which is just as well, because if it didn't,
and the one
I think
difference,
the town of Hutt would be swept away.
it must have been the summer before last. We did a similar expedition. We went to exactly the same spot, and what really struck me was because that was in the middle of the El Nino, real drought conditions then, and we went to the place, and I had to sort of send you down with the camera because I couldn't sort of, you were jumping from stone to stone to sort of go up. I mean, there was basically river there, and now there's nothing. I mean, I'll have photographs of it, and it's the first time I've really seen toxic algae like that.
You're right, Robin, and that toxic algae was in that shallow area, little pools very close to the bank. And as you say, last time we went there, which I think was late summer, there was none of that algae visible there, and it was much deeper. I think to get a whole picture of the river would take a bit of effort, but it would be worth doing because it's changed its flows so much in its course.
And then, of course, the statistics. But one thing I've noticed with the statistics is I go back to statistics which I got before, and I go online now, and I can't compare the two because the graph is completely different. It doesn't show the detail, and it doesn't reflect, the changes. So, they've changed the data or the way the data is presented, and that makes it very difficult to make any historical comparison. I would have to go back to the council and get them to send me, because they've done this before, to send me the actual figures, for comparison.
Right.
But anyway, I'm not sure if I've got the time or energy for that. But anyway, that's the ongoing saga of the Hutt River. Thank you very much.